John Winters watched Ambassador Victhal's antennae twitch for the third time in 5 minutes. The insectoid alien was clearly struggling to focus on the peace talks. This was bad. The Harmony had been hosting these negotiations for 3 days now, and they were finally making progress. "Are you well, Ambassador?" John asked quietly. Victhal's compound eyes swiveled toward him. "My apologies, Human John. I am experiencing nutritional distress. My species requires certain compounds every 6 hours. The ship's food synthesizers cannot create what I need." John frowned. As the human xenobiology specialist on the diplomatic vessel, this was his problem to solve. "How much longer can you continue?" "Perhaps 1 hour." Victhal clicked his mandibles nervously. "Then I must withdraw. Most unfortunate. If the ambassador left now, weeks of careful diplomacy would fall apart." John tapped his comm unit. "Susan, we have a situation. Meet me outside the conference room." Susan Miller, the ship's chef, appeared minutes later. Her apron was stained with various colorful sauces. "What's up?" she asked, wiping her hands. John explained the problem quickly. "Ambassador Victhal needs specific nutritional compounds. Without them, the peace talks will fail." Susan nodded thoughtfully. "What compounds exactly?" John showed her the chemical formula from his tablet. Susan's eyes widened. "Wait, that looks like... Hold on." She ran back to the kitchen and returned with a small red bottle. "Try this." John read the label. "Hot sauce. Are you serious?" "Those compounds look like capsaicin variants. It's worth a try." John ran a quick analysis with his handheld scanner. His eyebrows shot up. "You're right. The molecular structure is a 92% match. But humans eat this for pleasure. It causes pain." Susan grinned. "Exactly. Weird, right?" When John offered the hot sauce to Victhal, the alien examined the bottle cautiously. "This contains your needed compounds," John explained. "Just a few drops should help." Victhal's mandibles clicked in what John recognized as skepticism. "Humans consume this substance." "Yes," John said, "for enjoyment. You ingest pain-inducing chemicals for pleasure." The alien's antennae stood straight up in shock. "It adds flavor," John said, realizing how strange this must sound. Victhal carefully placed 1 drop on his feeding appendage. The effect was immediate. The alien's exoskeleton changed color slightly, and his posture improved. "This is adequate," Victhal said, his voice stronger. "I can continue the negotiations." The peace talks resumed, but word spread quickly among the alien delegations. Humans willingly consumed substances that caused pain. By evening, Susan found herself surrounded by curious aliens in the dining hall. "I have prepared an Earth-style feast," she announced, setting out dishes with varying levels of spiciness. Each is labeled with its intensity. The aliens watched in fascination as John and other humans added hot sauce to their meals, sometimes wincing but clearly enjoying the sensation. One brave alien delegate tried a mildly spicy dish. His eyes widened. "It hurts, but also brings pleasure. How strange." Soon more aliens were experimenting with the spicy foods. The atmosphere changed. Tensions eased as they shared this new experience. Diplomats who had been arguing fiercely hours before were now comparing reactions to different sauces. "Your mouth burns, yet you continue eating?" asked a particularly curious delegate. "The burn is part of the experience," Susan explained. "Some humans chase the feeling. We call it a spice high." By the end of the night, the peace agreement was signed. As the delegates departed, Ambassador Victhal approached John with a small container. "I request more of this hot sauce for my personal use," the alien said. "My people will want to study this substance." John smiled. "I'll make sure you get a good supply." After the ambassador left, Susan nudged John. "Did we just say galactic peace with hot sauce?" "I think we did," John replied. "Maybe humans aren't so weird after all." Susan laughed. No, we're definitely weird. We eat pain for fun. But sometimes, weird works. Across the galaxy, a new legend began to spread. Humans, the strange beings who consumed fire for pleasure and created peace through pain. The alarm blared throughout Research Station Horizon. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Alan Rodriguez ran to the main control room, his security uniform hastily pulled on. "What's the situation?" he asked as he entered. Dr. Olivia Grant looked up from her tablet, her face grim. "Power core failure. Life support systems are switching to backup, but that won't last long." Scurrian, the station's manted-like alien science officer, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Our calculations show we have 72 hours before life support fails completely. Can we fix it?" Alan asked, already checking the station schematics. "Yes," Scurrian said, "but the repairs require continuous work in the lower levels. The radiation there is dangerous, but not immediately lethal." Olivia frowned. "The problem is, we need constant monitoring during the repairs. Someone needs to stay awake and work for 3 days straight." The room fell silent. Then Scurrian spoke. "My species cannot function without rest for more than 8 hours. Our brains simply shut down." Alan and Olivia exchanged glances. "We'll do it," Alan said. Scurrian's compound eyes widened. "That is not possible. No intelligent species can go without sleep for that long." Olivia opened a drawer and pulled out several small pills. "Watch us." "What are those?" Scurrian asked. "Stimulants," she explained. "They'll keep us awake and alert. You would poison yourselves to stay conscious." Scurrian sounded horrified. Alan laughed. "This is nothing. You should see college students during final exams week, or new parents with a crying baby." Scurrian's antennae twitched in confusion. "You regularly deprive yourselves of sleep." "When necessary," Olivia said, handing Alan several pills and swallowing 2 herself. "It's not healthy long-term, but humans can push through." For the next 3 days, Alan and Olivia worked in shifts. One would monitor systems while the other crawled through narrow tubes replacing damaged components. The alien crew watched in fascination and horror. By the second day, both humans moved slower. Their eyes were red, and they sometimes swayed on their feet. Scurrian observed them closely. "How are you still functioning?" he asked during hour 42. Olivia gave a tired smile. "Microsleep. Little naps while standing up. Our brains shut down for seconds at a time." "You sleep while awake." Scurrian couldn't believe it. "Sort of," Alan said, his voice raspy. "It's not real sleep, but it helps." On the 3rd day, Alan dropped a tool 3 times in 5 minutes. Olivia kept forgetting words mid-sentence, but they continued working. "Just a few more hours," Olivia muttered, downing her last stimulant with a gulp of cold coffee. Scurrian brought them food and water, now genuinely concerned. "Your species' ability to postpone biological necessities is disturbing yet impressive." Alan managed a weak laugh. "Humans can go about 3 days without sleep before serious problems start. Water? 3 days. Food? 3 weeks. We're stubborn that way." Finally, the power core hummed back to life. The emergency lights switched off, replaced by the normal white lighting. Life support systems returned to full power. Olivia slumped against a wall. "Did it," she mumbled. Alan didn't even respond. He simply sat on the floor, eyes already closing. "You should help them to their quarters," Scurrian told the other crew members. "I believe they will now enter a hibernation state." The humans were carefully carried to their beds. They slept for 20 hours straight. When they finally awoke, they found a new notice posted throughout the station. "Do not disturb humans during hibernation cycle. Approach with caution after extended wakefulness. Provide caffeine before attempting communication." Scurrian had included a scientific note at the bottom. Human sleep patterns remain the most bizarre and frightening aspect of their physiology. They can postpone it until near death, then recover with a single extended rest period. Truly, sleep is for the weak. And humans are not weak. The ground shook violently beneath the mining colony of New Klondike. Dust fell from the ceiling as warning lights flashed red. Status report. Karen Davis, the colony administrator, shouted over the noise of alarms. Frank Collins, the chief engineer, checked the readouts on his tablet. His face went pale. Main support beam in Section 5 is failing. We have maybe 2 hours before total structural collapse. Grolks, the cephalopod-like alien mining consultant, moved closer on his 6 tentacles. His skin changed from blue to a worry purple. We must evacuate immediately. Karen brought up the external cameras. No way. There's a meteor shower hitting the surface. Anyone who goes outside gets turned into space dust. The 3 of them stared at the screen. Rocks of various sizes hammered the surface of the asteroid. The evacuation ships were only 200 meters away, but it might as well have been 200 kilometers. We're trapped, Grolks said simply. His tentacles curled in distress. Frank stared at the mining equipment diagram on the wall. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. I have an idea. What kind of idea? Karen asked. A crazy one, Frank replied, already moving toward the door. We can use the drilling laser to cut through the rock below us, create a new tunnel that bypasses the failing support beam. Grolks' skin turned an alarmed orange. That is insane. The drilling laser is designed for precision work on the surface. Using it inside the colony violates 17 safety protocols. He's right, Karen said. One wrong move and you could breach the atmospheric containment. Frank shrugged. Sure, it's risky, but it's better than definitely dying when this place collapses. Grolks waved his tentacles frantically. The power requirements alone make this impossible. You would need to reroute the entire colony's power grid. Karen looked at Frank. The engineer had that familiar glint in his eye. She reached for her coffee mug, took a sip, and handed it to Grolks. Hold my beer. This is coffee, Grolks said, confused. And why would I need to hold your beverage? But Karen and Frank were already rushing toward the equipment bay, leaving the bewildered alien holding the mug. For the next hour, Grolks watched in horror and fascination as Frank performed what could only be described as engineering magic. The human disconnected safety systems, rewired power conduits, and modified the mining laser in ways that made no logical sense. This violates the fundamental principles of safe mining operations, Grolks protested. Frank grunted as he connected 2 cables that sparked dangerously. Safety features are more like safety suggestions. When Frank finally activated the modified laser, it cut through the asteroid rock with incredible precision. As the support beam groaned louder, threatening imminent collapse, Frank created a new tunnel section that would maintain the colony's structural integrity. With 5 minutes to spare, the work was complete. The alarms stopped. The colony stabilized. Grolks approached Frank, who was covered in sweat and rock dust. What you did was impossible. Frank laughed. Nah, just extremely inadvisable. Later, as they celebrated their survival, Grolks asked Karen about the strange phrase she had used. Hold my beer. Karen smiled. It's just something humans say before doing something stupid or dangerous. But it worked, Grolks noted. Usually does, Frank said with a wink. That's the weird thing about humans. Tell us something can't be done, and we'll find a way to do it just to prove you wrong. 3 weeks later, a new memo arrived from the Galactic Diplomatic Office. It read, Alert to all non-human species. The phrase hold my beer has been classified as a level 3 warning indicator. If a human utters these words, please move to a safe distance and prepare emergency response teams. An imminent human ingenuity event is about to occur. Grolks pinned the memo to the colony's message board and added his own note beneath it. This is not a joke. I have witnessed it firsthand. Diane Powell rubbed her tired eyes. For 2 weeks, she had tried to communicate with the crystalline aliens, and for 2 weeks, she had failed. As the human cultural attaché on this first contact mission, it was her job to find common ground. So far, she had found nothing. Any progress? Ben Harper asked as he entered the meeting room. He carried his guitar case, as always. The musician had been brought along to represent human culture, but so far, he hadn't been needed. None, Diane sighed. Our translation technology can't make sense of their language. It's all vibrations and tones that don't match any known communication pattern. The crystalline alien, Yorthka, stood motionless in the corner of the room. Its body shimmered with faint blue light. Occasionally, it would make soft humming sounds that varied in pitch. Ben set down his guitar case and studied the alien. Have you noticed it reacts differently when certain people speak? Diane looked up. What do you mean? Captain Jones has a deep voice, and the alien always turns slightly blue when he talks. Dr. Roberts has a higher voice, and the alien turns more purple. Diane's eyes widened. You think it's responding to the sound rather than the words? Ben nodded and opened his guitar case. Let's try something. He took out his acoustic guitar and began playing a simple melody. The alien immediately turned toward him, its crystalline body glowing brighter. It's responding, Diane whispered. Ben played a few more notes, watching the alien carefully. The creature moved closer, vibrating slightly with each chord. Try something else, Diane suggested. Ben switched to a faster, more complex tune. The alien's color shifted to a bright yellow, and it began to emit a series of tones that almost matched the rhythm of the music. I think it's trying to communicate, Ben said. He reached into his case and pulled out a small amplifier. Let's see what happens with this. He plugged in an electric guitar and began playing a heavy rock riff. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien's entire body lit up with pulsing colors, and it began to emit a complex series of vibrations that filled the room. Record this, Diane told the computer. I think we're finally having a conversation. For the next hour, Ben played every style of music he knew. Classical music produced gentle, methodical responses. Jazz brought out complex, unpredictable patterns. But nothing got as strong a reaction as heavy metal. When Ben launched into a powerful guitar solo, the alien began to move in a way that almost looked like dancing. I can't believe it, Diane laughed. They like heavy metal best. Ben grinned. It makes sense in a way. Their language seems based on complex vibrations and dissonance. Heavy metal is full of that. Diane quickly called in the science team. They analyzed the alien's responses and confirmed that the vibrations it produced during the music were consistent with their language patterns. You've done it, the mission commander told them. This is our first real communication. Within days, more crystalline aliens arrived at the station. Ben organized what he called a first contact concert, playing everything from classical to punk rock to heavy metal. The aliens responded with their own sounds, creating an otherworldly jam session. During a break, Diane showed the aliens videos of human concerts, including footage of mosh pits and headbanging. One of the scientists translated the aliens' response. They say that humans are the only species they've encountered that deliberately creates beautiful chaos for enjoyment. They find it fascinating that we turn dissonance into art. Ben laughed. Should we tell them about death metal? One step at a time, Diane said with a smile. But I think we found our common ground. A week later, the first official diplomatic communication was established with the crystalline species. The message was transmitted not through words, but through a guitar riff followed by a drum solo. The alien's response translated roughly to, "The humans understand the music of the universe. We will talk more." Crick pressed his 8 legs firmly against the floor as the large furry creature approached. The arachnid-like alien researcher had been on the human colony for 3 weeks, but he still couldn't get used to the presence of these pets. "It's just a dog," Lisa Cooper said with a smile. The human xenobiologist noticed his distress. "He won't hurt you." "That is a predator," Crick stated, his voice translator making his words sound flat. It has teeth designed for tearing flesh. Steve Jackson, the colony's veterinarian, laughed as he checked the dog's ears. Buddy here wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, he might chase one, but he's a big softy. Crick's upper eye stalks twitched in confusion. You call this dangerous animal, Buddy? Sure, Steve said. He's my buddy, my pal. Dogs have been human companions for thousands of years. The alien made notes on his tablet. He was studying human relationships with Earth animals, but the more he learned, the more confused he became. Please explain again why you bring predatory species to a new colony, Crick requested. Lisa sat down next to the large dog, who immediately put his head in her lap. They provide companionship, security, and comfort. Some work as service animals, and honestly, it wouldn't feel like home without them. In my culture, we keep safe distance from predators, Crick explained. We do not invite them into our sleeping quarters. Steve finished his examination and gave the dog a treat. Humans have a long history of domesticating animals. We see the benefits outweigh the risks. Later that day, Crick was in the colony's common area when he heard a small scream. He rushed toward the sound, his defensive spines rising instinctively. He found a young human child pointing at a small green snake that had somehow gotten into the colony. Snake, snake, the child called out. Crick prepared to defend the child from the dangerous creature when Lisa appeared. To his shock, she calmly picked up the snake. It's okay, it's just a little garden snake, she said soothingly to the child. Look, it's a cute little danger noodle. Danger, noodle. Crick's translator seemed to stutter on the phrase. Just a silly nickname, Lisa explained, gently placing the snake in a container. Humans often give cute names to dangerous things. It helps us feel more in control. That evening, Crick was reviewing his notes when a small furry creature jumped onto his desk. He froze as the colony's cat stared at him with unblinking eyes. Please remove this predator, he said nervously to Lisa, who was working nearby. Lisa looked up and smiled. That's just Mittens. She's curious about you. Mittens, because of the soft paws that hide sharp claws? Crick asked. Exactly, Lisa nodded. Murder Mittens is another funny nickname for cat paws. You find humor in their ability to cause harm. Crick was bewildered. The cat began to purr, rubbing against the alien's arm. Despite himself, Crick found the vibration strangely soothing. Lisa showed Crick her tablet. Look at this. Humans share millions of images and videos of their pets daily. The screen showed countless pictures of dangerous animals in cute poses, with humans cuddling them or putting tiny hats on them. This makes no logical sense, Crick said. You take apex predators, invite them into your homes, sleep beside them, and give them names that diminish their danger. Steve walked in with his dog following behind. What can I say? Humans like to live dangerously. That night, Crick sent his research update to his home world. The report concluded, humans appear to be the only known species that domesticates predators for emotional support. They form deep bonds with creatures that could harm them, finding comfort in controlling danger rather than avoiding it. Perhaps this explains much about human behavior in general. They do not fear the predators because, in many ways, they see themselves in these creatures. The report was flagged for special attention by his species xenobiology department with a note. Approach humans with caution. They befriend the dangerous. The freight vessel Old Reliable shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Warning lights flashed across the navigation console. What's happening? Captain Natalie Wright demanded, steadying herself against her chair. Chris Martinez, the ship's mechanic, studied the readouts. Navigation system is glitching. We're getting false readings from the stellar positioning system. Dzult, the insectoid alien engineer who had joined the crew 3 months ago, moved to the console. His 4 arms began typing rapidly on different keyboards. I will begin the standard diagnostic protocol. Natalie frowned. How long will that take? According to the manual, 4 hours for initial diagnostics, then between 2 and 3 days for complete system recalibration. Bizzult replied, his mandibles clicking methodically. We don't have that kind of time, Natalie said. We need to deliver this medical cargo in 36 hours, or people die. Chris stepped forward. Let me try something, Captain. Bizzult's compound eyes swiveled toward the human. The manual explicitly warns against physical manipulation of navigation hardware while systems are active. Page 394, Section 7.2 clearly states. But Chris wasn't listening. He walked straight to the navigation console, studied it for a moment, then raised his fist and hit the side panel with surprising precision. Not too hard, not too soft, just right. The warning lights stopped flashing. The navigation screen flickered, then returned to normal operation. Navigation systems online and functioning normally, the ship's computer announced. Bizzult's antennae stood straight up in shock. What did you do? Chris grinned. Percussive maintenance. You hit it, Bizzult said, his translator struggling to convey his disbelief. Sometimes that's all these old systems need, Chris explained, patting the console affectionately. This ship's got personality. The nav system gets stuck sometimes when we jump from FTL. Just needs a little encouragement. But the manuals are written for people who don't know the equipment, Natalie cut in. Chris has been keeping old reliable running for 7 years. He knows her better than anyone. Bizzult seemed deeply troubled. This defies all proper engineering principles. Over the next few weeks, the alien engineer observed Chris closely. The humans seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to know exactly when, where, and how hard to hit various systems to make them work. The air recycler is making that noise again, a crew member reported one day. Chris nodded and walked to the wall panel. He tapped it lightly in 3 different spots, then gave it a solid thump with the heel of his hand. The noise stopped immediately. How did you know where to hit it? Bizzult asked, genuinely curious. Chris shrugged. You get a feel for it. Every machine has a sweet spot. A sweet spot, Bizzult repeated, making notes on his tablet. Yeah. It's like the machine is talking to you. You just have to listen. Bizzult followed Chris around for days, documenting every instance of percussive maintenance. The alien was both horrified and fascinated. One day, the ship's landing gear wouldn't deploy as they approached a planet's surface. Emergency protocol dictates, Bizzult began. Give me a second, Chris interrupted. He grabbed a wrench and crawled under the control panel. There was a solid thunk of metal on metal, followed by the satisfying sound of the landing gear deploying. How did you know that would work? Bizzult demanded. Experience, Chris said. And a little mechanical sympathy. Can you teach me this? Sympathy, the alien asked hesitantly. Chris smiled. Sure. First lesson. Machines are like people. Sometimes, they just need a little tap to remind them what they're supposed to be doing. To everyone's surprise, Bizzult proved to be an apt pupil. Within a month, the alien could be seen giving gentle taps to various systems, his head tilted as if listening. The human method is unorthodox but effective, Bizzult reported to his engineering guild. They seem to communicate with machines through physical contact, establishing a relationship that defies our technical understanding. The guild added a new section to their engineering manuals, Human Intuitive Mechanical Intervention. A primitive but occasionally effective technique when standard protocols fail. Warning, requires intuition that may be uniquely human. Chris laughed when he saw the new manual. They make it sound so complicated. Sometimes, you just need to give it a good whack. Xerlvik stared at the nutrient analysis on his screen with growing concern. The desert-evolved alien scientist's skin had turned a pale beige, indicating distress. The colony's food supplies are critically low in essential minerals, he announced to the humans gathered in the command center. Without these nutrients, many colonists will become ill within 10 days. Eric Peterson, the colony's terraforming specialist, frowned. Our next supply ship isn't due for 3 weeks. We must find another source, Nicole Weber said. The hydroponics expert tapped her tablet thoughtfully. The new crops won't be ready for harvest for at least a month. Srolvik's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. Perhaps we could synthesize some of the compounds, but we lack proper equipment. Eric suddenly stood up. Wait. The old storage bunker. There might be something there. The storage bunker had been part of the original landing site, now mostly unused as the colony had expanded. Eric led Nicole and Srolvik through dusty corridors until they reached a sealed door. This area hasn't been checked in months, Eric explained as he worked the manual override. Some of the first shipments were stored here and forgotten. Inside, they found stacks of containers labeled with Earth shipping codes. Eric rummaged through them excitedly. Here, he called out, pulling out several packages. Emergency rations. They should have the nutrients we need. Srolvik examined the packages with his scanner. These are powders, dried flakes. They contain no nutritional value in this form. Nicole laughed. That's because they're dehydrated. Just add water. Add water. Srolvik repeated, confusion evident in his voice. Eric opened one package and poured the contents into a bowl. Watch this. He added water from his canteen, stirred the mixture, and waited 30 seconds. The powder transformed into a thick, nutritious porridge. Srolvik's skin changed to bright yellow, the color of surprise. You made food appear from dust. Not exactly, Nicole explained. The food was always there. We just removed the water for storage and transport, then added it back when needed. The alien scientist touched the bowl cautiously. You deliberately dry your food to preserve it. Sure, Eric said. Humans have been drying food for thousands of years. It lasts longer and weighs less. They brought their discovery back to the command center. Nicole began checking all the packages they had found. We've got soup mixes, powdered milk, instant mashed potatoes, and even freeze-dried ice cream, she announced happily. Ice cream, that is. Dried. Srolvik couldn't comprehend this. How can a frozen thing be dried? It's complicated, Eric said, but basically we freeze it, then remove the water while keeping the structure intact. Srolvik watched in fascination as Nicole demonstrated more dehydrated foods. His scanner confirmed that, once rehydrated, they contained all the nutrients the colony needed. This is revolutionary, the alien said. My species evolved on a desert world where water is precious. We would never think to use it this way. Nicole showed him another package. This is my favorite. Just add hot water and you get noodles in 3 minutes. You humans carry dried food and add water later, Srolvik mused, while you yourselves are essentially water bags carrying around dry food. The irony is not lost on me. That evening, the colony celebrated their food discovery with a feast of rehydrated meals from Earth. Srolvik sampled each one carefully, making detailed notes. I now understand why human space vessels have so many water reclamation systems, he said to Eric. You don't just need water to live, you use it as a food storage technology. Eric laughed. I guess we do take it for granted. Water is just essential to everything we do. 2 months later, a new galactic regulation was issued to all spaceports. All human food products must be clearly labeled whether they expand with liquid addition. Warning: failure to add sufficient water space in storage containers may result in structural damage when human foods are accidentally moistened. Srolvik added his own advisory to his species database. Humans, the walking water bags who store food as dust. Their relationship with H2O defies conventional logic, but has revolutionized space travel food storage. Approach all human food packets with caution. They are rarely what they appear to be.